Okay, welcome to a DVD and Blu-ray update. You're looking at this because this is sort of take two. I was gonna do this yesterday, and I was gonna film two videos. I was gonna film one talking about this set more in detail, maybe something else in that video, and then a more general update later. But as I started to talk about this, I noticed that I was pretty deep into the video too, but I noticed that I'm just sort of rambling, or I don't really need to offer my detailed thoughts on all of these. It just didn't feel necessary. So I just stopped that, deleted that footage, and I thought that instead, because so many people have shown this Varda set, so I'm just gonna very briefly discuss what I think about the set overall. It is a very beautiful set, Varda. I could go into her filmography or who she was a bit more, but I think I'm not going to do that here. Most people will perhaps already know about her. If you don't, then I suggest maybe looking into her films because they are very interesting. This Criterion set I was really happy to be able to get sometime last year after it came out, when I realized that it's region free. Here we have the little thingy on the back, the information card, and you can see the films included here. La Pointe, La, La Pointe Côte, I don't speak French, Cleo from 5 to 7, Le Bonheur, those three I really like. Documentaire, Daguerreotype, really great, and The Beaches of Agnès, Gleaners and I, Faces, Places. I like a lot of these. There are a few that I don't like as much, but I think Varda, she was such an interesting, she was such a force of nature, or force of cinema. The fact that she made her first film, La Pointe Côte, in 1955, when she didn't know about films. She was a photographer. She just thought that she should make a film, and she ended up making a very mature film, looking at the world from two very different places. And she was able to sort of contrast these two stories very maturely and impressively, considering that she has stated in subsequently that she wasn't really familiar with cinema. She hadn't seen a lot of films, period. She was like 25, so that's pretty remarkable. And then after that, there was only one way to go, and she really used all her creative tools. For example, in Happiness or Le Bonheur, she fades. Instead of fading in between shots like to black and white, or fading from one shot to another, she faded like to a bright green color that filled the screen, and then it faded out, and then you had the next scene, or a bright red color or a yellow color. That film, by the way, becomes rather satirical in my mind towards the end, relating to the title and what happiness means for different people, and what it, well, anyway, I won't say too much, but there's some really interesting ideas in that film. Cleo from 5 to 7, I think, is a really, really emotional film that I can't quite stop thinking about. Probably my favorite from her. The Gleaners and I, and Cleo from 5 to 7, they were the only ones that I had seen prior to this. Well, I had seen The Beaches of Agnès as well, but it was one of those viewings that I don't know. I wasn't in the right frame of mind. So when I returned to it, The Beaches of Agnès, in this set, I was really much more of a fan of it. So really, I had only seen a couple of films from her before this, but I feel like, and then you have a bunch of text here. I haven't read this book, by the way. I should do that. But I feel like she's such a unique filmmaker in many ways that I just felt like I was more familiar with her than than I actually was. Meaning, I was familiar with her as a person more than with her filmography somehow. But now I am familiar with her filmography. Everything is included here, basically. There seems to be maybe a couple of minor things she made in the 2000s that aren't included, but basically everything is. And this took me, when I received this set, this was all I watched for like the first week and a half. Like every day I was just watching this, nothing else. and then after that you know, it took me a little bit longer to finish it. But this was, I mean, this is like a few weeks of entertainment. Yeah, but this is such a great set, really incredible, and well worth the money. I don't think I paid too much for this. I mean, considering how much stuff you get. I wanted to. I don't actually have them with me. Let's see. They are right behind. Okay. I wanted to briefly show these before we move on to some more, I don't know, more recognizable titles, if you will. I want to show these real quick. These are Edition Film Museum DVDs. I think it's an Austrian label or company. And the main, you can see the spine numbers of the releases, you can see the director's name, you can see the titles. And if you were to look at the titles and the directors, you can sense pretty easily that, or pretty quickly, that most of these are from one person, James Benning. These Edition Film Museum DVDs, they are really interesting. They are focusing on, you know, world cinema, experimental cinema, and things that I wouldn't normally hear about elsewhere. So, about James Benning, he's a director. I actually made a video, and I just deleted all the files because I'm just not gonna sit through that editing process, because I don't think a lot of people are gonna want to watch that. It just didn't really turn out that well. So I'm gonna be again, I'm gonna be very brief here. As with the Varda set, I think it's for the best. James Benning, he is a very unique director. He approaches images and juxtapositions in a way that to me is completely unique. I mean, except for, I suppose, these two. I mean, everything here is like exploring various aspects of Americana, and they can be very minimal. This might be my favorite DVD, along with perhaps this. They are quite difficult to briefly talk about, because they don't. I mean, yeah, they use various techniques and patterns of images and sound in order to convey images and ideas, and thus reveal sort of various aspects of American life. But they are very minimal. I mean, they are sort of documentaries or slower experimental films, observational or structural films, and they're really interesting. I mean, trust me, there's some great shots here. I mean, if we're talking about great shots, then this California trilogy, El Valley Centro especially, also Sogobe has a really interesting sense of place. Sort of brings up in a really interesting way, like man's encroachment, if that is even the word I'm looking for, on nature and their coexistence. El Valley Centro, though, to me, just had a bunch of killer shots. I mean, he comes from a background of being a mathematician, so he approaches the shots, the framing, very precisely. So in this California trilogy, I forget the exact length of them, but it says on the back here, these are 3 distinct Californian landscapes into a total of 105 shots, each exactly 2.5 minutes long. So, yeah, each shot the same length, each film the same amount of shots. So he approaches film in that sense, but then you have things like this, which is a bit different. I mean, American Dreams, Lost and Found, has the same kind of pattern, which you will notice. It is a quite challenging film, but one of the best, I think. Landscape Suicide is a bit more loose. There are recurring themes here as well, but it's more of a story that's being told in Landscape Suicide, rather than just observing places, which a lot of these are. But these are really, really wonderful, and I would really recommend getting them. I mean, they're available cheapest. They seem to be available on Amazon Germany, at least. That's where I bought them. And I also have these two from the same label, The Parallel Street and Himmel und Erde, Heaven and some, I don't know, Heaven and Earth. So I got these two as well. just to check out what else the label had to offer. And I didn't like those quite as much, but they were absolutely worth watching. So I do want to keep exploring this. Shit, sorry about that. This label. And then I'd like to show these two that a viewer sent me. If you're watching this, I mean, I know you sent me a few more things, and I'm looking forward to getting to them, but I haven't seen the rest of them yet. But these two, Our Little Sister and Shoplifters, two films by Hirokazu Koreeda. Thank you so much for sending me. I feel really spoiled that you did. I got the BFI set containing Maborosi, Still Walking, Afterlife, and Nobody Knows, and I really enjoyed that set. And I bought the Family Values set myself, but these two are not included on either of them, so this is absolutely perfect. These were both really good. I really appreciate you sending these to me. I prefer Shoplifters by a little bit, but they're both really beautiful films. So thank you so much for that. And then I have some films by Sion Sono. I don't know if I've shown some of these before, and I think I may have a couple more that I haven't seen. Yeah, I do have a couple more that I haven't seen yet, but let me show these now. Cold Fish, Land of Hope, and The Whispering Star. I may have talked about, yeah, Himisu and Anti-Porno before, but these I've seen more recently. These two are not the more... I mean, Sion Sono, he has made a lot. He's a Japanese director. He just turned 60, I think, or maybe... Yeah, he's about 60. So he's been making films for a few decades. He's a pretty maverick sort of director, exploring a lot of different themes, but in a lot of his films, well, they can be quite violent and approaching controversial subject matter and emotional subject matter. And another one that he made is Love and Death. No, Love and Peace, sorry. Love and Peace, right, yeah. And Love and Peace, along with these two, are some of his more approachable, more or less violent films, more mainstream, perhaps. Although Love and Peace is pretty out there, but these two, I mean, Land of Hope is very basic and not one of his best, but well worth watching. Whispering Star is really interesting. It's quite moving in the end. And this did sort of fly by pretty quickly. Not one of my favorites from him, but pretty cool. This also includes a documentary, the Sion Sono feature-length documentary, which, even if you don't like the film, I think this Blu-ray is well worth getting for that documentary. And then Cold Fish was the only one that I had seen previously. I mean, before getting all these Blu-rays. This was the one that I had seen in the past, downloaded once upon a time. And I recall not really getting it, liking some parts, but thinking that it was a bit long and repetitive. That was sort of my feeling with this now. I mean, the first 2/3, they build up to something, and it moves quite slowly. But then the last third is such a gut punch, and then those last few minutes are absolutely fucking devastating. So... this is one of my favorites from him so far. I haven't seen Love Exposure yet. Probably because it's such a long film and I want to do it justice. I mean, I know what the reputation is for that film, and so I kind of want to find the right time to see it. Here's one that I saw just a few days ago, or last week sometime. The Morning Forest by Naomi Kawase. I've seen Sweet Bean from her before, which I liked, but this one I like much better. Really, really beautiful cinematography. And, I mean, the trajectory of this film, the way it starts, and then the way we're first introduced to the scenery, the location, and then we're introduced, it sort of cuts pretty clearly from the nature to the people, and then we become familiar with the people, and then in the second half the two merge, the people and the characters and the landscape or the nature, and that final half hour or final hour, whatever, the second half, when they sort of ascend, there seemed to be a theme of ascension really incredible imagery in this one. I have also seen some of her earlier documentaries, which I have mentioned before. But if you can find Embracing and Katatsumori, I think I saw them on YouTube. I mean, I'd love to pay for them, but I don't think they're available. They were available to me in any other way. But I would recommend watching those as well. They are just as good as this, to be honest. Then we have a film by Tsai Ming Lang called Stray Dogs, and then another one called Journey to the West. So I wanted to get this because I recently saw Goodbye Dragon Inn, which I really liked a lot. And this is the only other one that is easily available on DVD or Blu-ray in the UK. So I wanted to get this. Stray Dogs is very minimal and mysterious, and I didn't really understand the whole story. It is thought-provoking, but it is, to me, the characters, their story is told maybe for me a little bit too minimally to fully engage with them. Although films like that can be immensely rewarding upon rewatching and thinking about them and whatever. So I liked it. Journey to the West I had actually seen on YouTube before. I suppose out of these two I prefer Journey to the West. I suppose I may have talked about that when I talked about Goodbye Dragon Inn. So I just because of that, I'm gonna not do that here. If you want to know about the film, you can look that up, or you can look at my previous video. I suppose you'd have to find the right one. I'm not actually sure which one it is. But anyway, if you get this DVD, don't stop at Stray Dogs. Check this out as well. Journey to the West. Very, very, very slow and minimal, but really interesting, and a really unique sort of pacing that you become completely transfixed. And the events on screen is perhaps, it is absolutely one of the most minimal films that I have ever seen, which is a big statement, but it absolutely is. And when you watch it, you'll understand. But hopefully you can also get something out of it in the way that I did. It's utterly fascinating. Then we have a film called Monos. Alejandro Landes, I think he may be from Brazil. But I don't know, this film is like a co-production between different countries. I don't think it specifies where it is. It is very vague, both the plot and then the setting, or where this takes place. It doesn't really specify. I think it may have been shot in Colombia. So if my understanding is correct, if we have South America, like this, and we have maybe the Amazon and the Andes here perhaps, and then Colombia is here. Some of it takes place in the jungle. I think it was just like at the edge of like the Amazon, or maybe not part of the actual Amazon, but a little distance away. So it's like up here. So it's not, again, so it's not in the deep jungle, but films that take place in the jungle, I suppose filming them in the deep Amazon, if there are films that were filmed in the in there deep in the Amazon, then I want to see them. But maybe that's too dangerous, I'm not sure. Or just too, I understand why that hasn't been done. I mean, having seen BBC Earth documentaries, for example, I can understand that. But it doesn't really matter, because the magic of film transports you into the deep jungle, even if it doesn't necessarily, even if it's not filmed there, it feels like that's where it takes place. But this is sort of beside the point. The point is that part of this takes place in the jungle, and I love that scenery in films. The first part takes place on this sort of mountaintop, which has some gorgeous cinematography. I mean, to the point where I was looking at some of these shots and I was thinking, it's a shame that I didn't see this in the cinema. I'm not sure if this was shown near me, but I just wish I could have seen this in the cinema. Because some of those shots, I mean, I guess 40-inch TV is, my television is, I think I bought my TV 11 years ago, and I have no need of changing it. I hope it lasts for another decade. But some films, a 40-inch television just doesn't do them justice, and this is one of those, I suppose. It is very, very emotional. The plot, again, like I said, very, very mysterious. So I'm not gonna get into it too much, but well, I definitely liked it. Here's a Greek film, Suntan, really nice with the Greek film. I haven't seen a ton of Greek films, mostly because there aren't a ton of them, to my knowledge. I mean, it may not be the biggest country for film. Obviously, Theo Angelopoulos, I have some of his films, not all of them. Yorgos Lanthimos, I've seen most of his films, but not all of them. I haven't seen The Favorite. And then I've seen a film called Miss Violence, which I wasn't crazy about. I liked it sort of started out good, and then it sort of dropped in the second half. But Suntan, it was nice to see another film, because I think that's all I've seen from Greece. This is a film with a very clear aim, sort of closes in on something relating to these two characters here, and it's pretty obvious where it's going. And when it gets there, to me, it wasn't completely satisfying, and then it ends in a place with a scene that to me was frustrating and slightly confusing. So it narrows in a way that I, in some way, dislike. Then that last act is a little bit too. I don't even know the word. Sensational. Maybe that's not the right word. I don't think that's the right word. I mean, it's too. It becomes too much of a thriller for my taste. But I did like it. It is a slow film. I typically like slow films and films that take their time. I love the opening. It's about this guy. He arrives in a village or in a small town, maybe an island, and he arrives on Christmas. And then 5 minutes, 10 minutes into the film, we are somewhat familiar with this guy. Then it cuts, and it's bright and sunny outside. And so then we get a really clear understanding that, okay, so some time has passed, and what he arrived to do is to become the new doctor of this town. So it's a pretty clever way of very, very easily, quickly telling the audience that, okay, so now he has been doing his job for 6 months, whatever. Anyway, and then there are some vacationing guests who stir some trouble and fascination for him, and then it sort of goes, in a sense, downhill from there. But yeah, so I did like it, but I don't think that it's one that I would watch again. And then I want to show these two Blu-rays from Anti-Worlds. So we have Krabby 2562. You can barely see the font here. Filmed by Ben Rivers and Anucha Suvichakornpong. Probably butchering that name, but this is she is Thai. He is from the UK, and I've seen, I said, maybe one or two from their respective filmographies before, but this is a collaboration. Quite interesting. Very hard to talk about. It's very loose. A bunch of loose ideas coming together. History and the present sort of meshing together. And then you have the idea of looking of the cinema itself. There's a couple of interesting ideas involving that, but it's quite vague and it's a little bit hard to talk about like this in a video. But really great release from Anti-Worlds. And then Best Before Death. I do like these Anti-Worlds releases. They are really packed with special features. And this film, I didn't know what to expect. This is about Bill Drummond, who was a musician in the past. Now he is an artist traveling the world with a certain project, which is, again, very vague. It's a different kind of film, but we can apply the word vague to his art as well. But it is some of it is pretty clear what he's trying to do. Even if it isn't, it's so fascinating watching him traveling the world, doing these art installations or errands. Well, that's not the right word. There's another word that I was looking for. Art installations / well, whatever. It's if you want to call it art, I'm not even sure that I would. I guess it is in a sense. The film is it's actually really good. I really like this, and again, the Blu-ray is great. So many special features. So I have now seen all of the 6 Blu-rays released by Anti-Worlds, and the films themselves have been slightly hit and miss. I'd say about half of them I really liked. These 2 and Holiday I really liked. The other 3 I didn't like as much. But although Chain for Life, yeah, was quite interesting. Relaxer, not so much. Penny Slinger, interesting subject, less interesting as a film. But the Blu-rays themselves, the presentation is, I mean, absolutely, top notch. It's like whatever they say, A tier, S tier. So I'm so out of my comfort zone using that expression. But you know what I mean. Like it's like second to none. There's nothing. Nobody makes better Blu-rays than these guys, and the folks over at Indicator as well, Powerhouse. And then I have a few more that I want to talk about here. I mean, I have a lot more that I could be talking about, but this has to end at some point. We have this one, How You Live Your Story, selected works by Kevin Jerome Everson. I did try to write about most of these, or some of these, on Letterboxd, but I don't know. I thought this was him first, but this is actually an actor, a person from Spicebush, so this is not the director, which I thought was very confusing, because you'd think that selected works by Kevin Jerome Everson, you turn it around, you see a guy here, and you take it for granted that that's the director, but it's well. Anyway, it's a collection of it's a Blu-ray collecting works from this African American director, focusing on aspects of African American life. A couple of them are filmed outside of the America, or one of them at least. Most of them are filmed in the U.S. They are very mixed in terms of how they're presented. Some of them are quite abstract. Some of them are not. Some of them are very slow. He has one very, I mean. If the genre direct cinema can be used, he has one that's very clearly that. Then he has films that are very manipulative, or not manipulative, but they're very edited, and he uses a lot of different tricks and throws in elements of, I mean, uses editing and abstract ideas and juxtapositions in order to tell a greater story. But they are very hit or miss for me. Most of them miss, unfortunately. Some of them are good. This has been included on a few lists, like top 10 lists of Blu-rays from 2020. And I can see that because these haven't been widely available before like this. But the Blu-ray itself, while you have a lot of his films, 4 feature-length films and a bunch of shorts, and the total running time is, I mean, almost 9 hours, 8.5 hours, I guess. There's no there's no subtitles either, but that's not what I meant. There's no extras, not a single extra, no interviews. I mean, just one interview with Kevin Jerome Everson would have been nice, or in the booklet, some information. This is like an introduction from the director. I'm not sure if this was written for this release specifically, but it's very brief. And then you have pictures, and then here at the end, a little bit of information on the films. I mean, technical information. But that's it. And I would really have liked to hear more about his approach. Oh, crap. See what I did? Okay. Yeah. I've opened this a bunch of times. That hasn't happened before. Well, I guess I can do what Indicator does. Here's the director. Put it like this. It's broken here as well. Oh well. Yeah, so these were definitely hit or miss for me, but and then the Blu-ray itself. Well, so I guess that's what I was talking about. The Blu-ray itself is. I really like having these films available, and having become familiar with his work, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of it in general. Although, I mean, I can point out a few that I like the best. But then the Blu-ray itself, I wouldn't say that I was disappointed with, but I feel like there could have been something more in terms of extras. So, I mean, some of the ones that I like the best, I guess The Island of St. Matthews is one, and Fate 26. Ears, Nose, and Throat was quite interesting. 10-5 in the Grass I liked. Grand Finale I liked. And Poly 1 is a really gorgeous, it's just one shot. It's really gorgeous though. And let's see if I, some of these I'm struggling to remember which ones they were. Rams 26, Bluebears 21 is actually it's very minimal, but it is actually quite interesting. Those were probably the ones that I liked the best. And there are a few that I really kind of hated. Eerie was one of them, which is actually where this cover is from. And I think it's one of his most maybe popular ones, but I didn't like it. Sound That seemed pretty pointless to me, which is maybe not the word I should be using. Sandfield, no, Union, Round 7. Yeah, so I'm struggling to remember some of them based on the titles alone, but there were a few that I didn't like very much at all, and most of them that I wasn't crazy about either. I wouldn't say that I had fun going through the set, but I don't regret getting it. I mean, this is what I love: getting a new Blu-ray, being introduced to a new filmmaker. Even if I don't like all the films, I'm okay with that. I'm not saying that I am disappointed necessarily, but I wouldn't say that I liked them that much. But I very much appreciate having the Blu-ray, and I love that Second Run put that out. I want to show these also, two Roy Andersson films, his first one or one of his early ones, and then one of his later ones. This is a Swedish love story. The Swedish title is just A Love Story, but I guess when they translated it to English, A Love Story may have sounded too vague, so they added Swedish, but that's not included in the Swedish title. These DVDs are always really great. Swedish DVDs is often like, some people have jokingly called the Swedish DVD market like the third world of DVD markets, whatever. But his movies, they usually get really good treatments, so they have commentaries and so on. This one is a very realistic film, very strongly focusing on realism, whereas this, like the third trilogy, I'm not sure if he calls the trilogy something specifically. It's a pretty loose trilogy. I guess Edgar Wright calls his trilogy the Cornetto Trilogy. It's like very vague. And this it's an odd reference, but I just mean in terms of a trilogy of films that really have nothing to do with each other. I'm not sure if he has a similar. It just says his trilogy about being human. So Songs from the Second Floor, followed by You the Living, and then this one. And of course, after this, he has made another one. Took me a while to get to this one because I didn't find it for a good price, but now I did. So I didn't even mention the title, but A Pigeon Sat on a Branch Reflecting on Existence, I guess the English title is. I like the other two ones more, but this is still very good. There's a scene in this that I was introduced to, I guess around the time that the film came out, or slightly before, where there's a man who has ordered, at a cafeteria, he has ordered a beer and a sandwich, but then he pays for it, but then before he can take the food over to his table, it's still by the counter, he has a heart attack, and we don't actually see this happening, but he's lying on the floor and he's dead. But then there's like a situation that arises from that, like, so he has paid for his sandwich and his beer, so the beer and the sandwich, they're sort of momentarily existing in a kind of no man's land. So that's that idea to me. I just remember seeing that clip several years ago and thinking that that's fucking genius, and that is still one of the best parts of the film, I think. And then we have this one, Zombie Flesh Eaters 2. So I showed the third one some time ago, and I mentioned that I had bought this one along with it. but this one wasn't available, or it was shipped back or something like that. So I've had the third one now for a few months, not having seen it because I wanted to see this first, just because it comes first. So I have seen this now, and I wasn't that crazy about it. I mean, if Zombie Flesh Eaters 1 or Zombie 2 is like Lucio Fulci's version of Dawn of the Dead, then this is his version of Return of the Living Dead. I'm not sure if the third one has a similar theme or a similar film that it's ripping off, if you will. But this one I didn't. It was entertaining, but I didn't like it as much as some of the other ones, some of the other zombie movies from around this time from Italy. I actually haven't seen the third one yet, so I'm gonna be getting to that at some point. Okay, so I think that's it for now. I have a couple more stacks that I will save for next time. So thank you for watching, and